I'm ready. Good morning, everybody. Rules of Golf is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for thegolfdirector.com. I'm Martin Woodhouse, and today we are going to continue with Rule 20. We started talking about that last time, and as I said to Jeff, it is a very big rule. It's a rule that everybody uses every time they play, oftentimes called the kick-in rule. Anytime you're lifting your ball, touching your ball, anything like that, we're going to be invoking Rule 20. There are 7 parts to it. And as I say, it's a big rule. It took us, I think we'd spent about 40 minutes on the first 2 parts.
So the kick-in rule does not talking about your foot wedge, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. The old leather wedge. No, we don't use that. So we covered 20-1 and 20-2 last time. So 20-3... just to refresh your memories real quick, that is 20-1 is lifting the ball, and then 20-2, dropping and re-dropping. We looked at all the situations where we're required to re-drop the ball and so forth. And again, I keep referring back to the principles. Remember the great principle that we don't touch our golf ball, and of course, this is the rule that applies in those situations where we do touch our golf ball, to lift it, clean it, replace it, drop it, those kinds of things. And that's the reason there's so much going on with the rule. So we'll pick it up at 20-3, and that is placing and replacing. First part is who gets to do that, by whom and where. The ball to be placed under the rules must be placed by the player or his partner. That's placing a ball. A ball to be replaced under the rules must be replaced by the person who lifted or moved the ball, the player, or the player's partner. Remember when we talked about lifting the ball, there are 3 people who can do that. That's the player, partner, or somebody authorized by the player to do that. Sometimes it's easier to have somebody mark the ball for you, and that's fine. Question I often get asked is, does that person have to replace the ball? The answer is no. He may replace the ball, but the player himself could replace the ball. I would certainly recommend that if you do have someone mark the ball for you, to have that same person replace the ball, because you may not realize how he has marked it. We talked about that last time too. It's recommended, of course, to mark the ball immediately behind, not required. If the person who marked it for you marked it in front or to the side, and then you put it back in front of the mark, you're now going to be playing from a wrong place, which also is covered by this rule. It's 20-7. We'll probably get to that today. So that's replacing the ball. And, of course, anytime you're replacing the ball, it's got to go back in the exact spot that you lifted it from. The ball must be placed on the spot from which it was lifted or moved. If the ball is placed or replaced by any other person and the error is not corrected, as in 20-6, which we're also going to get to today, the player incurs a one-stroke penalty. A one-stroke penalty is if the wrong person puts it back, it's a one-stroke penalty. And in any such case, the player is responsible for any other breach of the rules that occurs as a result of placing or replacing the ball. Another good reason to allow the person who lifted it to replace it. If a ball or ball marker is accidentally moved in the process of placing or replacing the ball or marker must be replaced. There is no penalty if that happens, provided, again, we've come across this phrase before, the movement of the ball or the marker is directly attributable to the specific act of placing or replacing the ball or removing the ball marker. Otherwise, the player incurs a penalty of 1 stroke under the rule. So if you kind of nudge the ball or you kind of fumble it as you're putting it down, there is no penalty for that, but it must be directly attributable. We've talked about that before, to the specific act. If a ball to be replaced is placed other than on the spot from which it was lifted and the error is not corrected, the player incurs the general penalty being, of course, loss of hole in match play or 2 strokes in stroke play for a breach of the applicable rule. So that's part A. Part B, and this sometimes happens, if you're going to be replacing the ball and the lie has been altered. If the original lie of the ball to be placed or replaced has been altered, perhaps your ball was in the fairway next to somebody else's, close to it, and their shot resulted in changing the original lie of your ball. That's a situation, an example of the situation. So what do? Except in a hazard, the ball must be placed in the nearest lie most similar to the original lie that is not more than one club length from the original lie and not near the hole and not in a hazard. So we're just going to, again, here we go, another principle. That's you're entitled to the lie that your shot gave you. If it's altered, we're going to find the nearest most similar lie and we're going to put the ball there. That is, if it's not in a hazard. If it's in a water hazard, same thing applies. You're going to place it in accordance with Clause 1, except, of course, you must be in the hazard. Now, in a bunker, which is also a hazard, that is a little bit different. We don't find the nearest most similar lie because we can actually do better than that. We can, because of the nature of the bunker, it's got sand in, of course, we can recreate the original lie. So if two balls are close together in a bunker and the one player plays, resulting in changing the lie of the other player's ball, what he's going to do, he's going to smooth that over or whatever it may be and recreate the lie that he had originally. So it's a little bit different in a bunker. And there's a note here: if the original lie of the ball to be placed or replaced has been altered and it is impossible to determine the spot where the ball is to be placed or replaced, then Rule 20-3B applies if the original lie is known, and 20-3C, which we're coming to, applies if the original lie is not known. Basically what that means is if we know the exact position of the golf ball, we're going to replace it at that spot. If we know approximately where it is but not precisely, we're going to drop the golf ball. That's what 20-3C says. There is an exception here. If the player is searching for or identifying a ball covered by sand, then we're looking at Rule 12-1A. I'm not going to get into that right now. So 20-3C, this is the one where the spot's not determinable. If it's impossible to determine the spot where the ball is to be placed or replaced, perhaps somebody played your ball. For example, somebody took your ball. You knew it was there, you know the area where it was, but you don't know precisely. Then this is where this is going to apply. So through the green, the ball must be dropped as near as possible to the place where it lay, but not in a hazard on a putting green. If it's in a hazard, the ball must be dropped in the hazard as near as possible to the place where it lay. And on the putting green, we're going to place the ball. We're not going to drop it on the putting green. There are a couple of situations where you will drop a ball on the green. This is not one of them. Generally speaking, if we're dealing with the green and putting a ball back into play, we're going to place it. There is an exception under 6.8D. 6.8D is a discontinuance of play, and that tells us that if the spot is not determinable when we are resuming play, somebody picked up your ball, you left it out there when play was suspended, somebody took it, you know roughly where it was, but not exactly, you are actually going to place the ball in that situation. That's not a common one. And then the final part of 20-3 is 20-3D, and that's where the ball fails to come to rest on the spot. This can happen on the putting green, perhaps, where you're replacing it and it just simply won't stay put. If a ball, when placed, fails to come to rest on the spot on which it originally placed, there is no penalty and the ball must be replaced. If it still fails to come to rest on that spot, you have two goes at replacing it, then what you're going to do, again, you're going to find the nearest spot where it can be placed at rest that is not near the hole and not in a hazard. And in a hazard, it must be placed in the hazard at the nearest spot where it can be placed at rest. And if a ball, when placed, comes to rest on the spot on which it was placed, and then subsequently moves, there is no penalty, and the ball must be played as it lies, unless the provisions of any other rule apply. I was just looking through some of the decisions this morning, and there's a good example here, kind of an unfortunate situation. Player's ball has come to rest against an out-of-bounds stake, and as we hopefully know, we don't get relief from that. That is, out-of-bounds stakes are deemed to be fixed. Unlike hazard stakes, they are obstructions, movable usually. Out-of-bounds stakes are not. So we've got a player whose ball's resting up against the stake, out-of-bounds stake. He doesn't get relief, decides he's not able to play it. So he takes his drop and he plays it, and then he, for whatever reason, he needs to replace the ball, replaces the ball on the spot, and a few seconds go by and the ball starts to roll. This is where this rule comes in, and that ball rolls over the out-of-bounds line, out of bounds. This doesn't seem fair, I'm sure, but according to this rule, that ball is out of bounds. That ball is out of bounds.
So what's the remedy at that point? Does he go back to where he hit the previous shot?
Yeah, that would be the spot where it rolled from, the previous spot, stroke and distance. And in this case, the distance is only a matter of inches.
Oh, okay.
So he would drop a ball again at that place, the same place, a few inches inside. But, of course, he's got the stroke penalty for the out of bounds.
And if it does it again?
He could be there a while.
Could be there a while. He could rack up a pretty good score right there.
Yes, he could. Yeah, he could. Yeah. That, of course, is just such a rare thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, that covers all of those things. I think the takeaway from those last two parts, when we're replacing a ball, do we drop it, do we place it? The answer is we're going to place it if we know the spot. If we don't know the precise spot, we're going to drop it. So that's kind of what that's all about. Now, 20-4 is when is a dropped ball or a placed ball in play. If a player's ball has been lifted, it is again in play when dropped or placed. When dropped or placed. So when you're dropping a golf ball, the second it leaves your fingertips, that golf ball is in play. Not when it comes to rest, not when it hits the ground, but when it's left your hands, it is in play. So if for some reason you drop it, go, oh, wait a minute, and try and catch it, now you're in breach of Rule 1-2. You're taking action to influence and move the ball. So it's in play at that point. And I think we covered this before as well. But the proper drop, we've covered that.
Yeah.
It probably bears going over it again,
Absolutely.
just
Should,
real quick. Dropping a ball, there is a proper way to do that, and if you don't do it correctly, there is a stroke penalty for not doing it correctly. That is standing erect with your arm fully extended. Doesn't matter, in front of you, to the side, that's all good. At shoulder height. And I think I said this before, a lot of people seem to think it's at least shoulder height. That is not the case. It's not above your head. It is, people think they're erring on the side of safety by going, oh, I want to, but it is exactly shoulder height. So that's the proper drop. And if you drop it incorrectly, there is a penalty. Of course, you can correct that, which we're coming to shortly, under 20-6, which is known as the eraser rule. We can erase a mistake and put it right. A substituted ball becomes the ball in play when it has been dropped or placed. So if you substitute a ball correctly or incorrectly, it becomes the ball in play at that moment when you drop it. Substituted ball is Rule 15. We'll come to that at some point too. And then, as I said, 20-6 allows us the opportunity to correct any mistakes without penalty, which we'll get to in just a second. 20-5 is making the next stroke from where the previous stroke was made. And that's something that happens a lot. If you've lost your ball or if you're out of bounds, anything like that, you're going to be making the stroke from the spot where the previous stroke was made. And you always have that option. You can always do that. Sometimes it's the only way to get out of trouble by taking the previous spot. If you've hit the ball into dense woods or something like that, you find it, it's unplayable. 2 club lengths is not going to get you out of trouble. Going back on the line's not going to get you out of trouble. Really, your only option is going to be to go back to the spot where you last played from. So you can always do that. Now, if the spot was on the teeing ground, the ball to be played must be played from within the teeing ground, and you can play it from anywhere within the teeing ground, and of course you may tee it also. So if you teed it up on the right side, hit out of bounds, didn't like that so much, so you decide to go to the left side, you can certainly do that. So anywhere within the teeing ground, anywhere through the green, which is the rest of the golf course except hazards, and the putting green and the hole being played, the ball to be played must be dropped, and when dropped, must first strike a part of the course through the green. An interesting little decision on that one too, about a part of the course. Where a player has dropped a ball and there's a little bush kind of in the area where he's dropping, so it hits the bush, gets a deflection off the bush and hits the ground outside the prescribed area, outside the 1 club or the 2 club length area. Is that a redrop? Would you redrop that one, Jeff, or no?
I think so.
You would not.
Because the bush is part of the...
Yes. It doesn't say strikes the ground. It says strikes a part of the course.
Yeah.
And the bush is a part of the golf course. So that drop is good.
Huh. How about that?
That ball's in play. Yeah. So if you were to pick that one up, you're going to be picking up a ball in play and then ultimately playing from a wrong place if you don't put it back. So in a hazard, the ball must be played, to be played must be dropped, and when dropped must first strike a part of the course. I thought we just lost sound for a second. And on the putting green, again, we're going to place the golf ball if we're going to play a next stroke from the putting green. So when might that happen, do you suppose? That you're going to play the same, you're going to replay a shot from the putting green? That could happen.
It's not coming to me quickly, though. You're going to have to help me with that one.
How about Augusta number 15, perhaps? You're on the back of the green, you putt the ball, and it goes and goes and goes and keeps going and winds up.
Which we've seen before.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
And winds up in Rays Creek. You have options, of course, under Rule 26, water hazard rule. And in that case, probably your best option is going to be to replay the shot from where you last played it. Penalty stroke, of course.
Yep.
But that's again, that will be a place. So you would place it on the putting green in that case.
Huh.
So that's 20-5. Here we come to a lot of these rules, as I keep telling you, they have nicknames. This is the eraser rule, 20-6. And what it says is this, it's quite a short one. A ball incorrectly substituted, dropped, or placed in a wrong place or otherwise not in accordance with the rules but not played, that's the key, may be lifted without penalty and the player must proceed correctly. So if you've dropped in a wrong place, you've dropped incorrectly, you dropped it near the hole, whatever it may be, there is no penalty for that, provided you don't make the stroke. If you do make the stroke, then we're into the next part of the rule, which is the final part of the rule, and which we'll probably close on today, I think.
Okay.
Which is 20-7. That is playing from a wrong place. Playing from a wrong place. People often get confused with wrong place, wrong ball. But in any case, so in general, first of all, a player has played from a wrong place if he makes a stroke at his ball in play on a part of the course where the rules do not permit a stroke to be made or a ball to be dropped or placed, or number 2, when the rules require a dropped ball to be redropped or a moved ball to be replaced. Oftentimes golfers will replace a ball that they shouldn't, or rather not replace a ball that they should I say. For example, if you move your golf ball by any means other than a stroke, you have not played in accordance with the rules and you need to replace that. A good example might be if you're in the fairway You're making a couple of practice swings. You're not paying attention. I think we've probably all done this, or on the putting green even. You hit your golf ball mistakenly. You're not trying to hit it. You're making a practice swing, and you inadvertently hit the golf ball and advance it 10 or 20 yards or whatever it may be. I think a lot of golfers would consider that, oh, I hit my ball with a club, that's a stroke, I'll just, that counts, and I'll keep going. It doesn't count. The reason is that you didn't advance your ball with a stroke being the forward motion of the golf club with the intent of fairly striking the ball. There was no intent if you were making a practice stroke. Therefore, you haven't played your golf ball, you've moved it. Same as if you kicked it, or picked it up and thrown it. You haven't advanced your ball with a stroke, so you've got to do that according to the principle. So if you don't replace that golf ball, which I think a lot of golfers would not, they'd think, oh, I'll hit it, I'll just keep going.
I guarantee you 99% of the golfers don't know this.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
So now you're playing from a wrong place.
Wow.
And that's an additional stroke. That's a two-stroke penalty. That's a two-stroke penalty for playing from a wrong place.
So if I inadvertently hit it, taking my practice swing or practice putt, and I realize I've done that, and I replace it, I'm replacing it with a stroke penalty.
That's correct, 18-2.
But if I fail to do that, I get that penalty plus the other one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a two-stroke penalty.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, just one little thing to keep in mind with that one. The old one where somebody's on the tee and they're waggling the club around or whatever, and they knock the ball off the tee. That is not a stroke, and it's not a penalty either. It's not a penalty either. It's not one, because the reason is the ball is not in play. The ball is only in play once you made a stroke at it.
Huh. Okay.
And if it's on the tee and you haven't made a swing with the intent of hitting it, it's not a stroke. The ball's not in play. There's no penalty. So I've seen this happen. You go making crazy practice swings on the teeing ground and hits the golf ball, goes 200 yards.
Yep.
Nothing happened. Didn't count. So you're just going to tee another one up and no penalties.
And the opposite of that is the guy that's trying to hit the ball and he whiffs it and he says, well, that's a practice swing.
Well, as I always tell my students, what happens if somebody says it was a practice swing? My answer to that is, well, cheating is always an option.
Not the favored one, but otherwise an option.
No. So that is playing from a wrong place. Now, that's what a wrong place is. So the penalty for playing from a wrong place is in match play, you lose the hole. It's the general penalty. And in stroke play, this may surprise you too. If a competitor makes a stroke from a wrong place, he incurs a two-stroke penalty under the applicable rule. But here's the thing that a lot of people wouldn't realize. He must play out the hole from where he played from the wrong place without correcting his error. So if somebody does move their ball with a practice swing in the fairway, they go ahead and hit it, and fellow competitor says, you know what, that's you shouldn't have done that. You should have put it back. You've played from a wrong place. So the player goes, ooh, okay, I better fix that one. I'll go get it back and play it from the right place. Well, now you got another two-stroke penalty because that ball you hit from the wrong place is in play.
Yeah. So you're better off to take the lick and.
Yes, take your two strokes.
You made a mistake. It's too late to correct it once you do that.
Yes, you do not correct the wrong place unless there is a serious breach involved, unless by playing from a wrong place you've gained a significant advantage. I think one of the most famous examples of this happened right here in Myrtle Beach. Happened at the Dunes Club. I can't remember the year now. It was the senior event with involving Hale Irwin and Jim Dent, and I think I'm correct in saying it was a 72nd hole, the very last hole, and both players were on the green, fairly close to each other. They'd marked their golf balls. Irwin was away. He replaced his ball, but unfortunately he put it on Dent's marker. didn't put it on his own mark. So he hit the putt to about a foot, and at that point it became clear what had happened. And Hale Irwin, as most golfers would say, would probably do, he said, "Oh man, I've played from the wrong place. I need to fix that." So he went and picked his ball up, put it in the right place on his mark, and continued to play. That's a 4-stroke penalty.
Holy cow!
Yeah, 4 strokes. It was 2 strokes in the first place.
Yeah.
But the ball's in play, and you don't correct it. So now that ball that was in play next to the hole, he's picked it up, and he's playing from the wrong place a second time.
Let me ask you another question about that situation, because it brings up another question. How about Dent? How did he had to put his ball as close as he could place his ball as close as he thought it, where that mark
to
was.
his original mark.
His original mark, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there we get back to 20-3.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20-3. So obviously no penalty for him. And there was some speculation at the time as to whether he was aware of that ahead of time. I wouldn't want to speak to that. But in any case, you do continue on, provided there was no serious breach involved. So that's another term we've probably all heard, serious breach. Serious breach is where you've gained a significant advantage from playing from a wrong place. So if a competitor becomes aware that he has played from a wrong place and believes he may have committed a serious breach, he must, before making another stroke or making a stroke from the next teeing ground, play out the hole with a second ball in accordance with 3-3. So if he's not sure, well, I don't know if that was a serious breach or not. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. He can go ahead and play that second ball the same as you would in any situation where there is a doubt as to procedure. Then there's a couple of notes which really don't change anything. I'm not going to get into those right now. So
yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, so that finishes up Rule 20, and
there's a lot of stuff in that rule, man.
There sure is, and a lot of decisions. I read a bunch of those decisions this morning, kind of refresh my memory, and there's a few interesting ones there as well.
Cool.
All right, so that's the show for today. TGD Radio and TV are produced and broadcast by Zeus Radio Network for thegolfdirector.com. When visiting the Golf Director, navigate to our featured golf course pages where you'll find up-to-date information about course conditions, specials, and much more. If you need help with your next golf vacation, give us a call. 844-GO-GOLF-1. That's 844-464-6531. Go-Golf-1. All of our TGD programming is archived for listening and viewing on demand. To catch up on a show you may have missed, you can click on TGD Radio. There are also tabs in the menu, and you were saying before, Jeff, there's a lot of places we're streaming now.
Yeah, you can find us on iTunes, our most recent edition, Roku.
Right.
We're on the TuneIn app for you folks that have a smart device, or you can get it from your desktop under golf. We're usually number 1 or number 2 for golf on TuneIn. So we're on YouTube. We're on Ustream.
Sure.
Our total deployment now is over 1 billion devices.
Wow.
If we could get them all to listen, that'd be great.
Yeah. Something's going to crash if that happens.
I don't think we can handle it,
Also, just let me remind you that there are forums. We do have a forum for Rules of Golf, so if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to cover, or if you want to try and catch me out on something.
Yeah, that's at our community site. You go to community.thegolfdirector.com, or if you go to thegolfdirector.com, under the home tab there, you can find the community tab. Pretty easy to get to, but come join us.
All right. Okay.
Martin, thanks very much, man. It's always a pleasure to do Rules of Golf with you, and you had a little time away. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
Glad
folks,
to be back.
Stay tuned. There's more TGD radio and TV coming up next. Very good, man. Very good.